Welcome to part number 5. Nighttime always seems to come at the time you least want it. You know, whenever you think inside your head, oh, please don't turn to nighttime right now. Guess what it does? It turns to nighttime. And then you have to wait an extra, 5 to 10 minutes waiting for daytime to come again. And I was just coming into town to get a refill on health before I go back on my adventure, and then it turned to nighttime. And when it's nighttime, you can't get inside the church, and yeah. Luckily though, while I was killing enemies trying to get a few extra hearts, I leveled up. And if you don't remember, when you level up, your health is restored, and so I can continue back on my adventure. But I don't realize it until like 10 more seconds. I don't know what I was thinking. But then I saw my health was full, and then I'm like, oh, I can go back to, back on my adventure. Maybe I was trying to get enough hearts for the next whip upgrade, which I think we get in this part. There's only 2 more parts left. This game isn't terribly long, if you know what to do anyway. If you have no idea what you're doing, you're playing this game without a guide, or you have no idea, this game could take like, I don't know, 300 hours? I mean, there's some things that you would never figure out naturally. And that's where I think this game is not very good. I mean, just imagine if this game, like if townspeople, they gave you, decent hints, they told you, what you're supposed to do, or at least gave you a pretty good idea what you're supposed to do. This game wouldn't be too bad. I think the main problem with this game is the cryptic puzzles and trying to figure out what to do and figuring out where to go. I mean, the style of gameplay isn't terrible. The non-linear style is actually the dominant style of Castlevania we'll be seeing later on in the series, but it's just, this game is too hard to figure out. It's too hard to figure out what you're supposed to do, and that's why I think this game is so hated. Oh, and finally, morning. The morning sun has vanquished the horrible night. That quote has become somewhat famous. A lot of people like to say it. I don't know, just randomly. It's an internet thing. If you're not a person that spends a lot of time on the internet, then you wouldn't know much about it, but just take my word for it. That quote is pretty famous. And it's actually one of my favorite quotes in the Castlevania series. Now we're in another town which looks exactly like all the other towns in the game, and at this point you're starting to realize how similar the towns are in terms of layout and graphics and color and all kinds of stuff like that. And it's really starting to get old, and I just wish there was a little bit more variety in the towns. Maybe one town would just be a bunch of houses, like a small village, and then maybe just another town is just 2 houses or something, like a church and a store or something like that. I feel like it would have been better. It would have made the game a little bit more playable, because at a certain point, for some people anyway, not for me, but for other people, once they get to a certain point, they don't really want to continue playing, because it feels like the same thing over and over again for several hours. But anyways, look at that quote. Don't look into the Death Star or you will die. What? What? Don't look into the Death Star? What are they referencing? That has nothing to do with this game. Nothing. What were they? I really want to know the origin of that quote. Don't look into the Death Star? What? Believe in magic and you will be saved. Okay? Thanks? The townspeople are they're worthless. Don't even listen to them. They will offer you no useful information whatsoever. Just completely ignore them. Head into this house and you will find the 4th whip upgrade, the Morning Star. And the Morning Star is very similar to the fully upgraded whip from the original Castlevania. It does a lot of damage and it's quite long, so it is very effective for killing all types of enemies and bosses, and yeah, it's pretty good. The Morning Star is required to get the 5th and final whip upgrade, so make sure you buy that one at least. If you don't want to buy the Thorn Whip or the Chain Whip, fine, but make sure you buy the Morning Star, because the final whip upgrade is really cool, and you definitely want to buy it. It's in your best interest to buy it anyway. And we get the 5th and final whip upgrade, I believe, in this video in a couple minutes. It's very close to the 4th whip upgrade. And don't worry about grinding for any hearts, because the final whip upgrade is free, which is awesome. That guy says dig up the 4th grave in the cemetery to find a diamond. That is completely false. We already found the diamond and we didn't have to dig up any grave. There's not even a shovel in this game. You can't dig. So I don't know. Did they put these lines in the game to intentionally fool you? Were they purposely trying to lead you in the incorrect direction? I'm not quite sure. Maybe they were trying to do that. If they were trying to do that, that's a cheap move. They should not have done that. Oh well, this game is really old. No one really plays it anymore, and it has a reputation for being awful. Which I somewhat agree with, but not really. And those enemies, what are those? Floating robes? I don't know. But at this point, we're actually starting to see some enemy variety. We just saw some mummies and some floating robes and whatnot. And now we're at the most infamous part of the game, this dead end. It may just look like a dead end, but if you kneel down here in the corner for about 5 seconds while you have the red crystal selected, a tornado will come and teleport you over to the next mansion. Which, oh, we're going into this mansion now. Okay, we don't get the final whip upgrade in this video. In the next video, we will get it. So now we're at the 4th mansion, and it's not too much different than the previous 3 mansions. It looks the same enemies, except they're brown this time, and yeah, it's starting to become very repetitive. Hopefully you bought an oak stake in the 3rd dungeon, a replacement one, so you can skip a large portion of this mansion. If you didn't buy a replacement one, you have to take a very long route to get to the person that sells the oak stake. But if you bought one in the 3rd dungeon, you can finish this dungeon very quickly. As you can see, I am already at the body part of Dracula, and it is Dracula's nail, I believe. Let's see. You now possess Dracula's nail. Possess. I don't know if I mentioned this back in part number 3, but when we defeated the Grim Reaper, we got the golden knife. And the golden knife text, it says you now possess the golden knife. It is spelled correctly, so there's really no excuse for spelling it possess, because it's spelled correctly when you defeat the Grim Reaper. I'm pretty sure. I'm almost positive. Anyways, Dracula's nail. I forgot what it does, but I'll post it right now, and you'll know what it does. I'm pretty sure it's not very useful. I just can't remember at this point, but I know it's not that useful, so don't worry about ever equipping it. Just always equip Dracula's rib, because it is the best Dracula body part. Much better than all the other ones. Except when you need to equip Dracula's heart. But you do have to collect them all, because without all 5 of the body parts, you can't access the final dungeon of the game, so you're forced to go to all the mansions, which is just, that's lovely. That part was very similar to a part earlier in the game. Select the red crystal and kneel down in front of the lake, and the path will reveal itself. Oh no, we will get the final whip upgrade in this video. Head over here and talk to this suspicious person right here, and he will upgrade your Morning Star with the power to burn away evil. And that means your whip now has fire. Yes, it has transformed into a fire whip, which is awesome. It looks really cool. And to my knowledge, they've never brought back the flame whip in any other Castlevania game. I know in a handheld game later, they give you, if you perform a certain button combination, you can use a flaming whip, but I don't think in any other game where you can just use the flame whip. Actually, no, there's one coming up. Later in the series, there is an upgrade to use the flame whip, but it consumes magic, so it's useful, but it's not as awesome as this flame whip. It's extremely powerful. Almost every enemy in the game can be taken out in 1 or 2 hits. So now you're pretty powerful. You shouldn't have to worry about any enemies in the game. You're pretty strong. Now you only have to worry about your health, as your offensive capabilities are now at their maximum. You have, with the golden dagger and the flame whip, you are extremely powerful and no enemies will stand in your way. Even bosses will go down incredibly quickly. Some bosses go down so fast that it's shocking. I mean, you can't even call them bosses, they go down so quickly. For this part, make sure you have at least 2 laurels, because this swamp is very long. And yeah, you're gonna need them. Make sure you're jumping when you're crossing the swamp, because you'll move faster, which is always nice. We'll go to the final dungeon of the game in part number 6. I'll see you then.